The diamond bracelet on her wrist cost $40,000. I know because I signed the check for it 3 weeks ago. What I didn't know was that my husband would be fastening it around his mistress's arm while telling her he loved her. I stood in the doorway of the VIP room at Club Noir, watching Luca press Gianna Torres against the velvet couch. His hands tangled in her hair, her lips moved against his neck. The bracelet I'd apparently bought for her sparkled under the dim lights. Tonight was our 4th wedding anniversary. I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I didn't storm in and cause the scene everyone would expect from a betrayed wife. Instead, I smiled, because I'd been waiting for this moment for 8 months. I took out my phone and pressed record. The camera captured everything. Luca's whispered promises, Gianna's satisfied smile, the way my husband looked at her like she was his entire world. "I'll divorce her soon," Luca murmured, his voice carrying clearly to where I stood. "Serena's boring and simple. She has no idea about anything. Once I secure the Torres alliance, I won't need her anymore." Gianna laughed, a cruel, tinkling sound. "Poor thing probably thinks you actually love her. What does she do all day? Arrange flowers?" "Exactly. That's all she's good for, looking pretty and staying quiet." They kissed again, and I recorded every second. The irony was almost too perfect to bear. Luca thought he was using this affair to access the Torres family shipping routes. He thought marrying Gianna would make him more powerful. He had no idea that I already owned those shipping routes. The Torres family had been paying tribute to my family for a decade. Every dollar Gianna's father earned, I took a percentage. Every dollar Luca earned, I gave him. He just didn't know it. Earlier today, I found the plane tickets in his jacket pocket. 2 first-class seats to Paris, departing next week. One for him, one for Gianna. Our anniversary trip was apparently being given to his mistress. I played the perfect role at dinner, excited wife, grateful for the flowers, pretending not to notice how often he checked his phone. When he excused himself for a business emergency, I counted to 60 before following. My driver knew exactly where to go. He's worked for my family for 30 years, long before I married Luca Benedetti. Now I watched my husband promise another woman everything that was already mine. My phone buzzed. A text from Uncle Carlo. "The board is ready when you are." I typed back quickly. "After tonight, we move." Luca had no idea who I really was. No one did. To the world, I was Serena Benedetti, the simple flower shop owner who got lucky and married into the Mafia, the innocent, naive wife who didn't understand her husband's business and didn't ask questions. That was exactly what I wanted them to believe. I took a final video, Luca telling Gianna he'd give her everything, that she'd be the queen of his empire soon, and pocketed my phone. Then I walked away without making a sound. My driver was waiting outside. He didn't ask questions. He never did. "Home," I said simply. The penthouse was dark and quiet when I arrived. Luca wouldn't return until early morning, smelling of Gianna's perfume and full of lies about late meetings. I poured myself a glass of wine and walked to our bedroom. Behind the mirror was a safe Luca didn't know existed. I pressed my thumb to the hidden scanner and the glass swung open silently. Inside were documents that would destroy my husband's world. Contracts, financial records, property deeds, ownership papers for every business, every territory, every dollar Luca thought belonged to his family. 78% of the Benedetti empire actually belonged to me. The remaining 22% could be seized whenever I chose. Luca thought he was a king, building an empire. In reality, he was a middle manager who didn't know who signed his checks. And tonight, his queen had finally decided to stop hiding. I raised my wine glass to the documents, to the recordings on my phone, to 4 years of playing the fool. Happy anniversary, husband. You have no idea what's coming.
5 years ago, I was just a girl in a flower shop. At least, that's what everyone believed. The shop was called Petals and Promises, a tiny storefront in the city's arts district. I opened it myself, learned to make every arrangement by hand, built relationships with customers who thought I was just a hardworking young woman chasing a simple dream. They had no idea that my father owned half the city. Alessio Marchetti was a legend in our world. He built the Marchetti Empire from nothing, turning a small family operation into the most powerful syndicate in the country. Politicians feared him. Rival families paid him tribute. His name alone could end wars or start them. But he had one vulnerability: me. My mother, Alba, died when I was 15. Cancer took her slowly, painfully, while my father and I watched helplessly. Before she passed, she made him promise to protect me at all costs. So he hid me. No one knew Alessio Marchetti had a daughter. I was raised in secret, educated privately, trained in everything from business to combat. But publicly, I didn't exist. My father's enemies couldn't hurt what they didn't know about. The flower shop was his idea. Learn to read people, he told me when I turned 22. Learn how the world works from the bottom up. Understand what it means to build something with your hands. Then, when you're ready, you'll take everything I've built. 2 years later, my father died of a heart attack. Uncle Carlo took over publicly, managing the empire while I continued hiding in the shadows. I wasn't ready to reveal myself yet. I needed to learn more, see more, understand how our operations actually worked. Then Luca Benedetti walked into my flower shop. It was a rainy Tuesday afternoon. He pushed through the door like he owned the place, water dripping from his expensive coat, arrogance radiating from every pore. "I need flowers," he announced, "for my mother's birthday. Something impressive. Money is no object." I recognized him immediately. The Benedetti family had been quietly controlled by my father for 15 years. They thought they were independent, powerful, self-made. In reality, my family funded their operations, approved their deals, and took a percentage of everything they earned. Luca didn't know any of this. He genuinely believed he was Mafia royalty. I found that amusing. "What does your mother like?" I asked sweetly, playing the helpful shopkeeper. He looked at me then, really looked. I watched his expression shift from dismissive to interested. I knew what he saw: a pretty girl in a simple apron, no makeup, dirt under her fingernails from repotting plants. Harmless, controllable, easy. He said, "She likes expensive things," flashing a charming smile. "Like me." I laughed at his terrible joke. Inside, I was calculating. Marrying into the Benedetti family would give me direct access to their operations. I could monitor everything closely while maintaining my cover. And when the time came to reveal myself, I would already be positioned perfectly. So I let him flirt, let him take me to dinner, let him show off his wealth, my family's wealth, like a peacock displaying stolen feathers. Our courtship lasted 6 months. Luca proposed on a private yacht, thinking he was impressing a simple flower shop girl with his power and money. I said yes with tears in my eyes, playing the overwhelmed innocent perfectly. Our wedding was beautiful. 400 guests, none of whom knew the bride was more powerful than anyone in the room combined. Uncle Carlo found me alone before the ceremony. He adjusted my veil, his eyes filled with pride. "Your mother would be so proud. The student has become the master." I walked down the aisle toward Luca, watching him smile like he'd won some prize. He thought he was getting a naive wife who would stay home, look pretty, and never question his authority. He had no idea he was marrying his boss. The priest asked if I took this man to be my husband. I looked into Luca's eyes and said I do, without hesitation. Because I wasn't marrying a husband, I was acquiring an asset. And assets could always be liquidated when they stopped being useful. Marriage to Luca was a performance. Every morning I woke before him to make breakfast. Eggs exactly how he liked them. Coffee strong and black. Fresh fruit arranged prettily on expensive plates. When he came downstairs, I smiled and asked about his plans for the day. He never asked about mine. "Business meetings," he would say dismissively, kissing my cheek without really seeing me. "Don't wait up." I nodded like the obedient wife he believed I was. I watched him leave in his designer suits, climbing into cars paid for with my family's money, heading to offices built on my family's foundations. The moment his car disappeared around the corner, I transformed. My real office was downtown, hidden behind a legitimate accounting firm. Uncle Carlo met me there every day at 10 o'clock sharp. We reviewed financial reports from dozens of businesses: restaurants, construction companies, shipping operations, real estate holdings, some legal, some not, all mine. "The Benedetti numbers came in this morning," Carlo said one day, sliding a folder across the desk. "Luca approved a new nightclub investment, $3 million. I scanned the documents. Using whose money? Ours, of course, funneled through 4 shell companies so they think it's their own capital. Carlo shook his head. Dominic Benedetti actually bragged at last week's meeting about his family's business instincts. I almost laughed. Dominic, Luca's father, was the most arrogant man I'd ever met. He genuinely believed he'd built an empire through his own genius. He had no idea that every successful deal, every profitable venture, every dollar in his accounts traced back to Marchetti investments made before Luca was born. My father had been the puppet master. Now I held the strings. "What about the Torres situation?" I asked. Carlo's expression darkened. "Gianna Torres has been seen with Luca again, 3 times this week." I already knew. Nico Santoro told me everything. Nico was officially Luca's head of security, his most trusted man. In reality, he'd worked for my family since he was 19. Every meeting Luca took, every phone call he made, every secret he thought he kept, Nico reported directly to me. The affair had been going on for 8 months. At first, I felt something like hurt. Not love. I'd never loved Luca. But betrayal stings regardless of emotion. I'd given him 4 years of perfect wifely devotion, and this was his gratitude? Then I recognized the opportunity. Luca wasn't just cheating, he was trying to build an alliance. The Torres family controlled valuable shipping routes along the eastern coast. By marrying Gianna, Luca thought he could absorb their resources and become more powerful. He didn't realize I already owned those shipping routes. 10 years ago, my father made a deal with Gianna's grandfather. The Torres family could operate freely in exchange for tribute, 30% of all profits paid quarterly, no exceptions. When the grandfather died, Gianna's father inherited the arrangement and the fear that came with it. The Torres family answered to me, whether they knew my face or not. So Luca was chasing power he could never obtain, betraying a wife who already possessed everything he wanted. The irony was delicious. But the affair had evolved into something more dangerous. Nico's latest recordings revealed that Luca was meeting with Gianna's father, discussing a secret alliance. They were planning to move against the Marchetti empire, believing it weakened without male leadership. They thought Uncle Carlo was a temporary caretaker, that the real Marchetti heirs were dead or scattered. They had no idea I existed. "They're getting bolder," Carlo warned, "setting meetings, making plans. They think they can take us." I stared out the window at the city below, my city, though no one knew it yet. "Let them plan," I said calmly. "Let them think they're winning. When they finally make their move, we'll be ready." Carlo studied me with something like admiration. "Your father would be proud." That evening, I went home and let Luca criticize my cooking. The pasta was too salty, apparently. The wine wasn't chilled enough. I apologized sweetly and promised to do better. He had no idea he was insulting the woman who could destroy him with a single phone call. But he would learn soon. The recordings arrived at midnight. Nico sent them through our encrypted channel. 3 hours of audio from Luca's secret meeting with the Torres family. I sat alone in my hidden office, headphones in, listening to my husband plot my destruction. The Marchetti Empire is weakened, Luca said confidently. Alessio is dead. His brother Carlo is old and tired. There are no heirs. This is our moment. Gianna's father, Roberto Torres, responded with equal arrogance. My sources confirm the same. The Marchetti holdings are ripe for taking. If we combine our forces, we can seize everything within months. And Gianna will be my wife by then, Luca added. Serena is easy to dispose of. A quick divorce, a generous settlement to keep her quiet, and she disappears back to her flower shop. Gianna's voice cut in, dripping with contempt. She's so pathetic, Luca. Yesterday, she actually thanked me for being such a good friend. Can you imagine? She has no idea I'm sleeping with her husband. They all laughed. I stopped the recording, removed my headphones, and sat in silence for a long moment. Pathetic, disposable, easy to remove. That's what they thought of me. I should have felt angry. Instead, I felt something colder, something sharper. The focused calm my mother taught me years ago when she explained how to survive in a world of wolves. Never let them see your fangs until they're already in the trap, she used to say. The deadliest predator is the one nobody fears. I had played the harmless lamb perfectly, too perfectly perhaps. Now it was almost time to show them the wolf. I called Uncle Carlo at 1 in the morning. He answered on the first ring. He never slept much anyway. I heard the recordings, he said immediately. We should strike now, end this before they gain momentum. No. Serena. They're planning to move in 3 weeks. They think they're being clever, building alliances, positioning their pieces. I smiled in the darkness. Let them. Let them commit every resource to this attack. Let them burn every bridge and make every enemy. Then, when they have nothing left to fall back on, we destroy everything they've built. Carlo was silent for a moment. Then he chuckled softly. You're more like your father than I realized. Over the following days, I watched Luca with new eyes. Every lie he told, every fake smile he gave me, every time he pretended to be a loving husband, I cataloged it all. He came home late every night, smelling of Gianna's perfume. He made excuses about business meetings, late dinners, unexpected emergencies. I nodded and accepted every lie, playing the trusting fool. But I was also busy. Quietly, carefully, I began dismantling his plans from the inside. The businesses Luca thought he was about to steal, I transferred them to shell companies he couldn't access. The allies he thought he'd secured, my representatives made them better offers. The money he was counting on, it vanished into accounts he didn't know existed. I also planted seeds of doubt. Anonymous tips reached Luca suggesting Gianna was seeing someone else. A young businessman, handsome and wealthy, had been spotted taking her to dinner while Luca was busy with work. The tips were false, but Luca didn't know that. Financial discrepancies appeared in the Torres family's records, small amounts missing, unexplained transfers, signs of possible betrayal. Roberto Torres started questioning whether his future son-in-law was being honest about his resources. Cracks formed in their perfect alliance. Meanwhile, Gianna made her announcement. I was hosting a charity luncheon when she cornered me in the bathroom, her smile too bright and too sharp. I have wonderful news, she said, touching her stomach. I'm pregnant. Luca is thrilled. My blood turned cold, but I kept my expression warm. That's surprising, I managed. Congratulations. We're going to announce it at the Torres family gathering next month. Everyone is so excited. She left me standing alone, staring at my reflection in the mirror. Pregnant. Whether true or manipulation, this changed everything. I pulled out my phone and called Uncle Carlo. I moved the meeting up, I said calmly. We end this in 1 week.
The next 7 days were the busiest of my life. While Luca thought he was preparing for victory, I was systematically erasing everything he believed he owned. Every move he made, I countered. Every ally he counted on, I stole. Every dollar he expected to have, I redirected. He had no idea the ground was disappearing beneath his feet. First, I dealt with the businesses. The Benedetti family operated 12 major enterprises: nightclubs, restaurants, construction firms, import companies. Luca believed these were the foundation of his family's power. In reality, every single one was built on Marchetti loans, Marchetti connections, Marchetti protection. Within 3 days, I transferred controlling interest to shell companies registered in my name. The paperwork was complex, buried in legal language Luca would never read. By the time he discovered what happened, it would be far too late. Next, I handled the allies. Luca had spent months building relationships with smaller families, promising them pieces of the Marchetti empire once he took control. These families were hungry, eager to ride his coattails to greater power. I sent my own representatives with better offers. One by one, they flipped. The promises of a captain's son meant nothing compared to guaranteed tribute from the actual Marchetti heir. By the end of the week, Luca's alliance existed only in his imagination. Finally, I addressed the money. The Benedetti accounts held approximately $40 million, enough to fund their operation and the planned attack against my empire. Luca checked those accounts daily, watching the numbers and feeling powerful. He didn't realize those accounts were hosted by banks my family controlled. On Thursday morning, the money began moving. Small transfers at first, easily overlooked. By Friday evening, $32 million had vanished into accounts Luca couldn't access, couldn't trace, couldn't even prove existed. He would discover the loss soon, but by then, nothing would matter. Throughout all of this, I continued playing the perfect wife. I cooked Luca's dinners. I laughed at his jokes. I pretended not to notice when he disappeared for hours to see Jana. Every night, I lay beside a man who was planning to destroy me, and I smiled because I knew the truth. He wasn't the predator in this marriage. He was the prey. Nico kept me informed of every development. Luca met with Roberto Torres again today, he reported on Wednesday. They finalized the attack plan. 1 week from now, they're going to move on 3 Marchetti warehouses simultaneously. They expect minimal resistance. Because they think we're weak. Exactly. Luca keeps saying it's almost too easy. I smiled at that. Yes, Luca, it does seem easy, doesn't it? That's because you're walking into a trap designed specifically for your arrogance. What about Jana's pregnancy? I asked. Nico hesitated. My sources say she visited a doctor yesterday. There's no baby. She was lying to pressure Luca into divorcing you faster. I wasn't surprised. Jana was as calculating as Luca. They deserved each other. But her lie had served my purposes, accelerating my timeline and forcing me to act decisively. Has Luca discovered the missing money yet? Not yet. He's been too focused on the Torres meetings, but his accountant started asking questions this morning. It won't stay hidden much longer. Perfect. By the time he realized his empire was crumbling, I would be standing on the ruins. Uncle Carlo and I finalized preparations for the family meeting. Every major crime boss in the region would attend, supposedly to discuss territory disputes and business arrangements. In reality, they would witness my coronation. The guest list included the Torres family, the Benedetti family, and a dozen other operations that had no idea who really controlled their world. Luca would be there, confident and arrogant, ready to announce his grand alliance. And I would be there to show everyone the truth. Saturday morning, I stood before my bedroom mirror, practicing expressions. The innocent wife would appear one final time, then she would disappear forever, replaced by someone Luca had never imagined existed. My phone buzzed. Uncle Carlo's message was simple. Everything is ready. Tomorrow we make history. I looked at my reflection. Soft eyes, gentle smile, harmless appearance. Goodbye, Serena Benedetti, I whispered. Tomorrow, Serena Marchetti would finally step into the light.
The silence lasted exactly 4 seconds. Then chaos erupted. Roberto Torres started shouting denials. Dominic Benedetti demanded explanations. Luca stared at me like he'd never seen me before, his face cycling through shock, confusion, and dawning horror. I let them panic, let them process, let the truth sink into their bones. Then I raised my hand, and the room fell silent. I have documents, I said calmly, nodding to Uncle Carlo. He began distributing folders to every person at the table. Financial records, property deeds, loan agreements. Every piece of paper proves what I'm telling you. I watched Dominic Benedetti open his folder with trembling hands. His face crumbled as he read the truth. His entire empire was built on Marchetti money. Every profitable venture, every successful deal, every dollar he thought he'd earned independently had been funded and controlled by my family for 20 years. This is impossible, he whispered. It's documented, I replied. My father was a careful man. He kept records of everything. Roberto Torres threw his folder across the table. This proves nothing. Forgeries, fabrications. Perhaps you'd prefer to hear the recordings, I interrupted. Nico? Nico Santoro, Luca's trusted security chief, stepped forward with a small speaker. He pressed play, and Luca's voice filled the room. The Marchetti Empire is weakened. There are no heirs. This is our moment. Then Roberto's voice. If we combine forces, we can seize everything within months. And finally, Jana. Serena is so pathetic. She has no idea I'm sleeping with her husband. The recording continued, documenting every secret meeting, every betrayal, every insult they'd whispered behind my back. The room listened in stunned silence. When it ended, Jana was crying. Roberto looked like he wanted to disappear. And Luca, my husband, my betrayer, sat frozen in his chair. You, he breathed, staring at me. You knew everything, the whole time. From the very beginning, I confirmed. Every meeting you took, every lie you told, every time you touched her, I knew. But you were just a flower shop girl? I smiled coldly. That's what you wanted to see. That's what everyone wanted to see. Nobody looks twice at the harmless wife arranging centerpieces. I stood, placing my hands flat on the table. Here's what happens now. The Torres family will continue paying tribute, 40% instead of 30%, as penalty for this betrayal. Roberto, you will personally ensure your daughter never contacts my husband again. Roberto nodded frantically, already calculating how to survive this disaster. I turned to Dominic. The Benedetti family will continue operating, but openly as subordinates. You'll run the businesses I assign you, pay tribute quarterly, and remember exactly who allows you to exist. Dominic's pride crumbled visibly. He nodded without speaking. Finally, I faced Luca. My husband, my betrayer, the man who called me pathetic and boring and easy to dispose of. I want a divorce. You'll sign the papers my lawyers have prepared. Per our prenuptial agreement, which you never bothered to read, infidelity voids all claims to marital assets. You get nothing. You can't do this, Luca sputtered. I'm your husband. I have rights. You have what I allow you to have. I leaned closer. Be grateful I'm allowing you to breathe. He shrank back from me, finally seeing the wolf behind the lamb's mask. 1 year later, I stood at the window of my corner office, watching the city sparkle below. My city, my empire, finally, openly mine. The divorce was finalized within 3 months. Luca lived in the small apartment now, working as a mid-level manager in a shipping warehouse. My shipping warehouse. Every day he went to work for the wife he'd dismissed as pathetic and boring. Jana disappeared after the Torres family cut her off. Last I heard, she was working retail in another state, her dreams of power and luxury completely shattered. Uncle Carlo retired peacefully, proud that the Marchetti legacy continued. And me? I remarried eventually, a good man who knew exactly who I was and loved me for it. No masks, no performances, just truth. I caught my Mafia husband cheating on our anniversary. He didn't know I owned his empire. Now, he works for me. And every morning when he clocks in at my warehouse, he remembers exactly who the real boss always was.